All right, we're live. Welcome back, everybody, to another Bitovi podcast or Bitovi weekly JavaScript training. With me, as always, is Alexis Abril, dialing in from France.
Hey.
How's Paris?
It's nice, but I'm a little tired. So
Tired. So this week, we are going to take everything that we've put together from the last, I don't even know which one, what number is this? Like 12 or something? I don't know.
number 13.
13. Lucky number 13. Last 12 weeks, we're going to take all that and put it, and we're going to finally make our own tabs widget. And then, time permitting, we're going to talk about kind of widget theory in general and what it takes to have a good widget. A lot of frameworks make it easy to build your own widget more or less with like everything that's important. But let's start with building our basic tabs widget with the version of Jquery that we've been building up this whole time. And then we'll kind of swap out and probably use real Jquery. So let me share my screen. Okay, so I am, let me actually make a change to make sure that this is going. Okay, so here's, let me share this with you, Alexis, so you can give the other share link. So here I have the fully filled out version of Jquery that we built, and JS bin is loading that before really this HTML is loaded, before the script tag. So I want a tabs widget that's going to cycle between a bunch of different dog breeds. So the first thing I need to do is build the HTML that the tabs will be using. So I'm going to cheat a little bit, or just, I will not cheat. Well, I am cheating, I just have my HTML that I'm gonna write up in a different window that you cannot see. So our tabs widget, we're gonna build it in here, and then eventually we're going to want to call the tabs widget like this, $. We're gonna wanna get our element that is going, we're gonna add the tabs widget to, that's gonna be our breeds element, and I just wanna call tabs. This is the goal, that I can create a tabs widget for a bunch of breeds like this. So we need some HTML for this, and I'm gonna do what is called progressive enhancement, meaning my widget isn't gonna create the HTML, instead my page responds with valid HTML that JavaScript progressively adds rich behavior to. So my page's HTML, I'm gonna put the tab buttons in a UL. I'm gonna have a UL here, that's my breeds. It's gonna have a few LIs that are gonna represent each tab button. So I have tab href, and then I'm actually gonna hide my version of JavaScript to make it a little easier. So I'm gonna have the different breeds that I'm gonna have are Dobermans, Beagles, and Boxers. And you might be wondering why I have these links that have these weird hrefs. I'll explain that in a moment. So these are going to be the tab buttons. Actually, I might need some. I'm going to add a little bit of style so that they show up more looking like a tab. I don't think we need any of this anymore. Now it looks a little bit more like tab buttons. And what I want is that when someone clicks on Doberman, it's going to show the content inside of a Doberman div. All right, Doberman content. And I'm going to copy this and make one for beagles and for boxers. Now, I mentioned the term progressive enhancement. The cool thing about this page is that even if no JavaScript was added, let me make it so it'll actually do what I want it to do. Actually, I'll add some. Okay. See if this will do it now. Okay, you'll notice here, if I click boxers, it scrolls down to show me where boxers is. If I scroll back up and click beagles, it'll make sure that beagles is shown. This is just part of native JavaScript functionality. The default behavior when you update your URL to include hash followed by some word here is if there's a matching ID, it will scroll the browser to make sure that that content for wherever you for the matching element is visible. So that's the kind of default behavior. This page actually works even if JavaScript is doing absolutely nothing. But we're going to make it work when JavaScript is actually turned on because we want it to hide the beagles and boxers until you click on them, and then it'll hide Doberman. So Jquery, actually, this will be interesting if we actually have this. This is maybe one thing that we didn't add. We need to add. Yes, there is one thing we need to add. So people who have, if you've ever made a Jquery plugin before, you might be familiar with Jquery Data. The way you create a plugin or an extension to Jquery so that we can call this tabs method on a Jquery collection is you add things to $.fn. You do $.fn tabs. I can create a tabs function here like this. So this might seem like, whoa, what is this magic FN? How does it add things to $? Well, all it's doing, all Jquery is doing, is adding FN is really an alias to the collections prototype object. So if you remember, a prototype object is what we're adding to here for all these on, off, those kind of methods. So really, $FN, you can think of it as just an alias for the prototype object. So with that, now we have $.fn. We can actually add.
Hey, Justin, I think that's in the wrong extend area.
Yes, it is. Thank you, Alexis. Sorry. I don't think we have. Do we have a static? Oh, it's there actually. Okay, I take it back. It's there. I don't remember adding it, but it is there. Okay, so sorry. I'm making $.fn, not $.prototype.fn is fn. Instead, $FN is the points to the same object that is $.prototype. So if you add anything to $.fn, you could have just written this out, $.prototype, for our version of Jquery. For the actual version of Jquery, I think it's $.init.prototype is the same thing.
They moved it in one of the later versions. I don't remember when that changed, but yeah, it's something else now.
Yeah, but for our version of Jquery, which is a little bit more simple, $.fn is effectively equal to $.prototype. So let's just make sure this is working. So again, now, because I'm adding to the prototype of a jQuery collection, this is a jQuery collection, and I have all my methods on it. So if I did everything correctly, I should be able to write I am a tabs, and that should have made all this content go away and say I have a tabs. But I am almost certainly breaking something, and let's see what I'm breaking. It says dollar is not defined. So this is what I was worried about.
Oh, because it's our version in the little.
Yes.
So we can load it after the fact.
What we could do is reverse this. So I'm going to stick this into a script tag, and I'm going to pull this other stuff out.
Good call.
Okay.
Yep, I got it.
Cool. Okay, so I made that change. So here you can see that we are we're getting breeds, and we're just throwing away all of its HTML and replacing it with IAM tabs. So that's why we get the nice IAM tabs up here. Okay, so we've correctly wired up a function on jQuery collections. So the next step is we need to hide all of the other elements. We need to hide Boxer and Beagles when we start up. To do that, I'm going, okay, so let me, I want to show the right way of making this, but I probably needs another explanation. Let's say I had two tabs in the page. One was breeds, the other was about fruits. There was like grapes, apples, and it's not a good
Pears.
pears. Yeah, that's the obvious one.
Oh.
Do orange because we're comparing. Okay, so let me change this stuff here. Okay. Now you can see we have two tabs on the page. Now, if I got both of those elements, if I did something like ul.tabs, I want the tabs behavior to be added to both places, right? I could also write out, I could write breeds, and I could write fruits. So just so you know, not a lot of people are familiar with this. jQuery supports, you could put, just like in CSS, you can put commas. You can also do that in a selector with jQuery. So this would select breeds and fruits. I could even do other, it doesn't have to be IDs, it can be ULs or whatever you want. And you'll notice that jQuery will, what's the word I'm looking for? It will uniqueify the collection. So even though UL will select fruits and breeds is selecting breeds, breeds will not be selected twice here. jQuery always makes sure only one element appears in a collection like that. Okay. So anyways, I've got my tabs. Now, this collection is going to contain two ULs. So I need to loop through each UL and create a separate tabs widget for each UL. So here is my index, and here is my UL. And what I could do right now, just to make sure it's working, is I'm going to create a jQuery collection for my UL. Because this is a raw, this is a native DOM element. Instead, we want it in the collection so we can do fun things to it. So I'm going to call that $UL. And on $UL, I'm just going to write tabs plus I, just to make sure that we can see, hey, these are two independent tabs widgets. They can work side by side. Okay. So what we need to do now is go through our LIs and the anchors inside each LI and find the ones after the first LI, so beagles and boxers, and hide their div contents. To do this, I am going, given the UL, there's kind of two ways you can do it. The easiest way, well, the most robust, let's do it the most robust way, would be to get all of the LIs. We actually only want the children, because there could be LIs inside of these ULs, but you really wouldn't want that. What you really want is the LI, and you want its direct children that is an anchor. Of course, we don't have that in our version of jQuery, so never mind. I'm just going to do it the easy way. I'm just going to find all anchors, and I'm going to go through each one. I don't think we added each here, so I have to use this.
Yeah, we don't have a prototype each.
We don't have a prototype each. jQuery is a prototype each, but not us. Okay, so this is each anchor. So I'm going to do I. This is the anchor. And what I'm going to do is, if I is greater than 0, what I want to do is get, I'm going to make a function, a helper function, but I'm going to call it here. I'm going to get the tab content for a given anchor. And then I'm going to, I want to be able to call hide on it. So get tab content, I'm going to make as a helper. And that's going to be given an anchor element. Given an anchor element, it's going to read its href attribute and then use that as a, you notice how this looks just like a selector that you can pass to jQuery? It's going to pass that to jQuery to get the element that matches the href. So I'm going to first read the href. I'm going to make sure this is converted into something that's jQuery, flexion. I'm going to read the attribute href. And then I'm going to use jQuery to get the element for the href. And then with that, you can see we get our Doberman content. Correct. Sweet.
Any reason we don't just say a.href?
Yes. The reason is if we let's just console log what a.href is. You can see down here, a.href is we're reading the href property. This is something that I think I talked about a few days ago when we were talking about attributes and versus properties. Attributes will always give you what is essentially written in the HTML, but properties can do a little bit of transformation work. When you read the href property, it gives you the full URL. I don't know if people can see that, so let me just increase my font size. You can see it's given the full URL and not just, and if we pass this to $, this would not actually select the element we're looking for. That's why we use href. Good question, Alexis. Okay, so now we have our tabs widget, but we can't click on it or do anything with it. So the next thing is we need to listen to a click event on each anchor. So that jQuery collection is actually what's returned. Every anchor is returned from $each. So I can nicely use chaining to bind to a click event. Now, when a element is clicked, when an anchor is clicked, this is going to be one of our anchor elements. We need to get the tab content for it and show it. So I'm going to do that real quick. I'm going to do get tab content for the anchor, or for this, and show. With that, you can see as I click around, well, it's showing the new content, but it's not hiding the old content. Now, there's a few different ways that people might try to remember, like, try to hide the old content, the elements that should be hidden. I've seen people do it this way, where they will get they'll actually do something like they'll get all of the UL's anchors again, and they'll do an each there, and I've seen people do stuff like this where they get every anchor, and they'll hide every tab element. So now this works. But this is kind of expensive, because on every click, we're going to find every single anchor, and then with every single anchor, we're going to find the tab content for it, and then we're going to hide all of them, and then we're going to show, including the one that we're just about to show, we're going to try to hide it again, and then we're going to show what we're going to need to show. Now, this is fine for, actually, this is probably fine for almost every type of situation you have a tab. You would have to have 100 tab buttons before a user really noticed some slowness because of this. But in general, this is a bad idea. We can know what anchor was clicked on last, or what is the active anchor, and then make sure we're only hiding that one and showing whichever one was clicked on. So what I want to keep with every tabs is what is the active anchor. And when we first set up the tabs widget, the active anchor is the 0th anchor. So what I'm going to do is save. I'm going to set active anchor. I'm going to point that at the actual element that is currently active, actual anchor. Now, what we can do is hide. When someone clicks, well, we know what was the active anchor. We can just hide that. Now, finally, what we need to do is once we've shown the new content, we need to make sure that that becomes the new active anchor. And with that, everything works. Hooray! So hopefully that makes sense. Any comments, Alexis?
Yeah, we could. I mean, this is how we start off, right? Breaking down components, breaking down widgets into smaller and smaller pieces. Could we take this a step further? Instead of binding on each anchor, would it be possible to use event delegation with our fancy on for this?
Maybe. Does on actually work? Hopefully it does.
I believe so.
Sure. So we can
actually, before we switch to on, what would be kind of cool is what if we delete our version of jQuery, and what if we just add the actual jQuery?
That's a good idea. But before we even do that, you kind of brought up something interesting that's good to talk about. Mm-hmm. when you're building widgets, state management is really the name of the game. Like that's the most important thing in how you design a widget. So what I was doing before, I changed to using active anchor. So if I kind of go back here, this design is more or less stateless, which is kind of nice, right? This widget is effectively, there's no state that's being tracked by this tabs widget because it's just blowing away, you know, there is state in the DOM because clearly one element is shown and not the other. But we're ignoring that, and we're just, every time a click happens, we're just totally ignoring the state.
Mm-hmm.
Now, that is stateless is nice when you can do it, but you will not be able to do it at a certain point. You have to have state somewhere, like just because you need to track what state the user's in, because you want to be able to make changes and do the bare minimum of work. So that's what essentially I was doing. I was making this tabs manage state with this little anchor, active anchor variable. Now, as we progress through to building bigger and bigger widgets, what you have to do to manage state of complex widgets becomes, you have to do a lot of work for that. Just to give an example, it's just something I'm working on right now. I'm going to show off. I'm working on a little tournament app, and it allows you to add players to a team, and this widget makes sure that you can't select the same player for 2 different spots in the roster. Managing that kind of state for this widget is very tricky. And a lot of what we'll talk about going forward is related to that. But I just want to introduce that now because the decision to say, okay, well, I'm going to store state in this active anchor variable, that's like an actual important decision. And that's what you kind of need to think about, is where these things go and how they communicate with each other when you're building complex widgets. So anyways, I digress. Let's use jQuery. So I'm going to add a library. I'm going to add jQuery 2 and 4. Now we have jQuery in the page. So now I should actually be able to totally remove script tags we had for jQuery, and this should still work. Awesome. Cool. All right, so let's try to do what Alexis suggested. So Alexis suggested using $on. So I'm going to do on anchor click. I want to do call this function. And it does not work. Is it? Oh, it's on click anchor. I have it wrong?
Oh yeah, you had it backwards. On click anchor.
Okay, there it is. So now we can use event delegation, and if we were to even add new elements, which I can show, the tabs widget would still just keep humming along. So let's show that.
You could delete the orange li or something and just add it after a set timeout.
I don't want to delete one, I want to add one, because deleting one would work with the old one.
Oh, no, I just meant delete like hard code. Just hit the delete key on the orange li.
Huh?
Mm-hmm.
You mean just in here, in the HTML?
Yeah, in the HTML.
Okay, sure. So yeah, I'll cut this. Okay, so what I could do is say, hey, after 2 seconds, I'm going to get the fruits element, and I'm going to append the HTML for the orange content. And I'm going to make sure it's hidden. All right, no, I don't. Wait, what am I doing? Why did it say orange content twice?
Oh, because it's part of
because
our.
it's not hidden. Yeah. So this would have to be hidden. You probably actually added both of these, the content and the
Right,
LI.
the content and the link.
But regardless, so here we can, let me make this 5 seconds. So here, I'm clicking around, orange. Yay! That's kind of the power of event delegation, is that I didn't need to go and bind on this when it was added. You can just add HTML to page and your event handler still work. Groovy. Okay.
That was pretty awesome. If you're dealing with any kind of large paginated grid, which I'm sure nobody's ever built an app with a large paginated grid, this is one of those really common problems, is rebinding on links or setting up events in the right way or in an efficient manner, so that when you change pages, you still have that awesome functionality you did on the first page.
Yeah. Okay, so now let's show, do you think, Alexis, we should make this a history tabs? Is that your typical approach?
Ooh, we could. I mean, we were talking about what anchors actually do, how they're routed to the page. So we could make this a history tabs and talk a little bit about basically anchors functionality, how we kind of hijack that behavior for our own evil needs.
Yeah, so let me...
For those of you that are new JavaScript developers and are only aware of this awesome thing called push state, we're about to show you a dark past, a very recent past.
Dark. I thought this. I mean,
that's true. It's not.
I didn't mind it so much. The only problem with it is that these things aren't passed to the server. Hash is not passed to the server. So actually, I'm only going to show the hash. I'm going to show the whole URL. So this is going to be a little tricky. I'm going to have to spend a second getting a widget that will show the hash as it changes, because we can't actually see it because this is running in an iframe. So I'm going to make that work. So the way that I'm going to do this is to do a little callback function here, and this is going to set the hash's value to window.location. What is it? It's a hash. What is it called? Is it hash?
I think it is hash.
Hash? Okay.
That's hash.
And then I'm going to listen also when this element changes. So I'm going to set hash. I'm also going to listen to when, is it window.hash change, right?
Yes.
And then I'm going to listen to when hash itself changes. And I'm going to set the window.location hash. Okay, so let's see if this works. Nope. You sure it's window? Did I lose Jquery?
Sure. Yeah, window, add event listener hash change. That is correct. Oh, didn't like you refreshing it there.
Like value.
Oh, you're saying .value, .val.
Oh, goodness.
There we go.
Okay, now it's working. Hooray!
Typos.
Yeah. Okay. So here you can see as I'm changing, the hash is changing. Hopefully, although it'll be hard to verify, if I does the back button work? Ugh.
No, I wouldn't.
Let
What you
me
could do in the console, oh, I was gonna say you could put a button, or in the JSPN console tab.
Yeah.
You can just type window.history -1 or something.
Okay, so here we're creating our own little browser window.
So if you've followed us for the past 6 weeks or 8 weeks or so, we've made our own version of jQuery. In this episode, you've built your own tabs plugin, and now you're building Chrome. Or what was the first one? Mosaic.
Yeah. Click. So when you click back, we're just going to do, what is it, window.location.back, or forgot what it is?
Oh, I think it's window.history.
History, yeah. Window history back.
That's yeah, it's going to be a function. You can pass it -1, I believe. Oh, I'm sorry. It's going to be window.history.back.
Yeah.
And then that's a function.
All right. Well, let's try this. So, yay!
Yeah.
All right, cool. All right,
Fun with iframes.
Yeah, to give an explanation to everybody, what's going on here? So there's kind of two parts. I have the set hash function that all it does is reads the window location object's hash property. So the window location, let's talk about that real quick. Window.location, that has a bunch of information about the current URL you're on, right? So there's the domain, and there's a bunch of other information that you can read about what the URL looks like up here. If it's followed by a hash value, this hash property of window.location would be #value. So all I'm doing is reading that and setting the input's value to match what's window.location.hash. And then I'm making sure it runs right away, making sure it runs right away in case which it doesn't look like it, in case there's one kind of left over. In case like the URL this page is loading up with has a hash. I want to make sure that it's there, but it doesn't look like it ever does. And then I'm also listening on when the Windows hash change event happens, which happens anytime this value is changed. When that happens, I want to update the input element. And finally, I'm listening to when the input element changes and updating the hash itself. That's kind of what this effectively does, is cross-binds the value of the input with the value of the window location hash. And then finally, I just implemented a dumb back button that calls window.history.back, which sets the hash back to what it was before. Oh no! Oh no! Okay.
Let's see where it's saved.
Okay, it saved it all.
Nice. I don't think you could actually show the cross binding, but just typing, you should be able to type into the input and just say #Doberman and show what's up.
No, because this doesn't change based on that. The widget doesn't change yet.
Oh, that's right.
So okay. So now
Gotcha.
What I want for a history tabs is that as I'm clicking around, if I click Doberman to Beagles and I hit back, it's going to show Doberman. So that as the hash changes here, the content is going to change here. We're going to only do this with one widget. There's good reasons for that. So I'm going to get rid of fruits. It's actually very difficult to make this work with two parts of the hash, unless you're using a framework like CanJS. And I literally mean CanJS is actually one of the best frameworks to do something like this for. Okay, so here we got breeds. we got our widget here. So I want to make tabs respond to what the hash is. Yeah. Okay. So now what happens, so I need to edit the tabs. So that's going to listen to when the hash changes and update which element is visible. And I need to update the tab so that when a element is clicked on, it's updating the hash. Well, an element when it's clicked on is updating the hash already, as you can see. So really, we just need to change it not to do when it's clicked on, to do any of this. Instead, somewhere else it's going to listen to when hash change happens and do its thing. So again, this is where state becomes really important. The state of what this tab widget should look like is now controlled by the hash. We don't need an active anchor because really, if the hash changes, we need to update ourselves. So we're kind of tied to the hash. We're shifting our state, what's housing the state, to really the hash, the window location hash. So we can get rid of this whole click business here. First thing. So now nothing's happening. And also, the first element that we show kind of depends on what the hash looks like. This actually, I don't know if we can even show this in JSBin because every time I make a change, it loads with, an empty hash.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm still going to make it so that if the page loaded with the hash beagles, we would show beagles when this tabs is created. So to do that, I'm going to get the current hash. Now, if there is no hash, then we still want to show Doberman by default. So because we're using jQuery, I can do that a little bit more easily now. I'm going to find the first anchor, and that is when I'm going to get its tab content. Now, you notice here I want to pass a jQuery collection to get tab content, and not just a raw element anymore. But I want to make it whether I pass a raw element or a jQuery collection, it works. jQuery can fortunately do that for you. jQuery can say, hey, if you pass a collection to the dollar function, you pass something that's already a collection, it doesn't like break. It does the right thing. It keeps that original collection. So I'm going to find that first element and hide it. Or sorry, I actually want to find all the other elements, don't I? I don't want to hide the first one. I want to hide all the other ones.
Yeah, since we're using jQuery, you could use like a:/GT1.
0, right? Or is it?
No, it's 1, right? Or is it 0?
Greater than, it depends if they're indexed with 0 or 1-based indexing. If it's 0-based indexing, I want greater than 0.
Right, I can't remember which one's which. It looks like greater than is 0 indexed. Maybe it's EQ that's 1 indexed.
Yeah, well, we can clean this up a little bit. So what I'm going to do is for each of those, I want to, for each one of those that are greater than 0, I want to hit the anchor, and I'm going to do this and hide all of them. Let's see. It looks like it's working. Oh, but this might just be because this is still left here. Oh, seems to be working. Okay, now if there is a hash, what we need to do is get that anchor element. I want to get the anchor element. We could do it a different way where we just go straight to these divs, but I kind of want to go through get tab content because if, let's say, a lot of times you want to add like which element is active.
Mm-hmm.
like put a border around it or something like that. Let's just do that so that the reasons that I'm doing it this way become more obvious. So what I want to do is on every LI that's the one that's actually being shown, I'm going to put a red border around it. So what I need to do is change even this initial case here to get the first anchor element. I'm gonna get its parent, and then I'm gonna add a class active. So now, if we do have a hash, we need to do something pretty similar. We need to get this Beagles element. Well, fortunately, jQuery and the DOM lets us select by an attribute. So I can actually say I want the href equal to something like Beagles. Does this need to be escaped? Part of me feels like it does need to be escaped, but I'm not sure. It used to be, I think, but probably not anymore. Maybe very old versions of jQuery. Anyways, so I need to find the href that matches the hash. I want to find an anchor with an href property that matches whatever hash is. So I'm gonna delete this part out and leave room for it. I'm gonna put in the hash like this. Cool. So once I've found that anchor, I'm gonna do something kind of similar here. I'm gonna, well, the first thing I'm gonna do is I need to get its tab content. I'm going to save the anchor because I need to reference it. This is going to be a jQuery collection. I'm going to get the tab content for the anchor and hide it. And then I'm going to, or not hide it, yeah, show it, sorry. And then I'm going to I need to add that active class to its parent. So this is our setup, right? We're going to check the hash. If we don't have a hash, then we're going to pick the first one. Otherwise, we're going to find the anchor that has its href right. We're going to add active to it. I'm just going to do the order this way. We're going to add active to it, and then we're going to show its tab content. Hooray! Okay.
We need to hide the other tab's contents as well, right?
Yes, we do. Thank you. Thank you, Alexis. So jQuery, the best way of doing this is actually to go to its parent, and then jQuery has a siblings method. So I'm going from the anchor up to the LIs. I'm getting all of the LIs that are not the parent of the anchor that was selected. And then I'm going to find each anchor in those LIs, and then I'm going to go through and hide. It's a little bit work. Using this chain syntax. Oh, won't let me indent this. Oh, I'll just leave it like that. That works. Okay. So now let's actually make sure this is working. I'm going to set the window location hash to Beagles as a test. Oops. Let's see if they can do this. Yeah, it works. Okay, sweet.
Nice.
So the setup is working, but as I change, nothing is happening. So the next thing we need to do is listen to when something changes. So that we already saw, window.on hash change. Listens whenever the hash is changed. Now, we can be a little sneaky here if we wanted to. And if we put all of this in a function, we could just call this update. We'll just call it update. Come on, indent. Indent. Indentation is not working. I'll do this manually. Okay. Now, if we just call update on hash change, and I don't know why it's actually, hold on. Okay, so if we call update on hash change, we'll call update right away so that the default behavior happens, and then we'll call update anytime the hash is changed. So that should work, except we're not removing the inactive class, right? So that's a problem. Now, and again, also on every update, this is going through and doing a lot of DOM traversal, right? It's going and finding every single other anchor and hiding all of its tab content elements. Like we could have done something like remove class here of active and then made sure this happened after, and the app would still work. But we're still doing all this extra work that we really shouldn't be doing. So what we can do is keep track of the state again. In this case, what was the last hash that someone went to? So I could do hash. I'll just keep a variable for, I'll call it last or active hash. And what we want to do is kind of change our logic here a little bit. Only if active hash is undefined, then we need to do all of this business. Otherwise, we only need to disable the last active hash. Right? So the way to do this would be if active hash is equal to undefined, that means this is the first time update has been called. And we'll essentially do this logic here, which will not be indented correctly. And otherwise, actually, I could just, probably should just do, now I think about it, I think I should just make this part of the setup. And not have to call update. I think that's a better way of doing it. Let me store the hash. Oh, it does go backwards. Okay, so we're going to do that setup code, but what we're going to do is change our update to work a little bit differently. We just need to get our active hash, or sorry, our last hash, and make sure we're hiding that the right way. So we'll do something like, we need to get the right anchor. So what we'll do, we'll get the anchor for the old hash. So the way that I will do this is, if there was a hash, we're going to find that anchor. Otherwise, if there was no hash where we were last, the value was like empty, we're going to just use the first anchor element. And then we're just going to do a lot of this standard code that will hide they'll make sure active is set right, and get the tab content for that anchor and hide it. Okay, so that takes care of hiding, tearing down whatever the old hash was before the update. We'll remove this. And then now we need to set up the new one. I'm going to set hash equal to window.location.hash. And essentially all this code becomes the exact same. It's just in reverse. This is to show, this is the add class. And that's it, right? Yep. Okay. So let me step through this again so people can follow along. Okay. I am going to read the hash during setup, and I have to kind of, based upon the hash, I need to, hide all the divs that need to be hidden, and make sure the anchor has the right active li has the right active class on it. So that's what this is taking care of, because there's kind of different. Actually, this code can be fixed, made a lot more simple. In the same way that I made this more simple. I can do that same trick. Yeah, I can do that same trick and do, I can pretty much do this exact same, something very similar here, and reduce the code. So if there is a hash, then I want my anchor to be that anchor with that hash. Otherwise, I just want it to be the first one. And then once I have that, I can do all this logic. I can get the parent, add active to it, and then I can do the siblings stuff too. This reduces the code quite a bit. So again, if there's a hash, or whether there's a hash or not, get the right anchor element that we want to show. We're defaulting to showing the first element if there is no hash. Then I'm going to get its li, add active to it, so it's red. And I'm going to get all of its siblings except for it, and I'm going to get their anchors and make sure their content is hidden. And an update, I'm going to kind of do very similar thing, essentially. And we could refactor this a little bit, because we can see here that if we were given a hash, we could, this code is the exact same thing, pretty much. Well, it's very similar, but actually it's not the same. Never mind. I think this is good how it is. What do you think, Alexis?
I think this is good. That was a good walkthrough about...
You're muted.
No. Your volume's low.
My volume is down.
Yep.
No, doesn't appear like it.
Can you hear me now?
I can hear you.
Yeah, you hit mute a little while ago. I didn't want to tell you anything. You were on the roll. Yeah, this is a really good walkthrough. We started with what is a jQuery plugin, $.fn.tabs' function. Showed people how we're wiring things up, and then just extended it with richer and richer functionality. I think this is a really, really good kind of intro to building extensible widgets.
Yeah. Now there is one problem with this widget. If you're trying to, well, this is not, I wouldn't say an extensible widget. This is just a widget. I can't really extend this tabs and to add new behavior. And then there's another problem with this widget in that if I were to remove the UL from the page, breeds from the page, like later, somewhere later, some functionality. Oh, here's some functionality right here. So let me, if sometime later, I was to remove breeds from the page, there's actually a memory leak, and not only that, there could be bugs. Not in this because jQuery is going to swallow those bugs for you, but this is really buggy. So let me kind of create a situation where it's more likely to happen. Let's say here, instead of parent on my anchor, I was just going to assume, hey, of course I have an anchor element, and I was going to get the raw element and do parent node dot class name equals active. So here I'm using the normal DOM to do the same thing that jQuery was doing. Getting the anchor, going up to its LI, getting the, this actually might work though. It won't cause a bug because the UL still has these as children nodes.
Right.
How could I show this freaking out? I really can't easily.
You're trying to show like leftover event handlers, right?
I'm trying to show the leftover event handler exactly, that it exists. I can just comment wrong.
Yeah, for those watching, what Justin's trying to show in code here, or come up with a scenario for, what we're both trying to come up with a scenario for, is binding event listeners to the page are just setting pointers from one property to some function in memory. The problem is if you remove something like a DOM element from the page, you're still going to have this handler reference in memory. So no garbage collection is going to actually be able to take place. Now, most of the time, you have libraries behind the scenes that are taking care of this for you. But this was a problem early on in some other frameworks where there was an easy way to bind, but not such a straightforward way, or not an apparent issue with unbinding. What I like to say is we're all familiar with on and bind. We use it all the time, but very rarely do we use off or unbind. So this is one of those scenarios.
Yeah, so let's see if I can demonstrate a little bit. So here I'm going to change this to go off in 10 seconds. So here I am happily going like this, and my console is going to say, hey, you're doing stuff, doing stuff, doing stuff, doing stuff, because that's the console log is in the it's in this update method. But now I just I removed the tabs from the page, but as I hit backwards, somehow it's still doing stuff. You can see Boxer's content, Beagle's content. Like I could, even if I restart here, so even if I were to remove Doberman, Beagles, and Boxer too, just remove every element.
You just remove divs.
Yeah, that's true. I could, but it's okay. I'm almost there. So now, whoops, geez, I did this in the wrong spot. Come on. Yeah. There you go. All right, so now, after 10 seconds, I'm removing everything. Okay, now it's gone, but even if I hit the back button, it's still doing stuff.
Mm-hmm.
If you were to look in memory, the tabs widget still exists in memory. This is a memory leak, which is really, really bad. And this is a very common thing that developers can forget, is that event handlers, especially on things that are kind of outside your element or your element's children, those need to be torn down. Like the event handlers that I have, if I put event handler on each anchor or things like that, when I remove the elements from the page, those event handlers would probably get cleaned up. But because I'm not removing the window when I'm removing breeds, Doberman, or removing these elements from the page, this event handler still exists. So these elements still exist in memory even if they're in the DOM. So you have to be very careful about how you can clean up widgets. So a lot of widgets have kind of, I'll give the kind of short path for making this possible in jQuery is they have like different methods you can call on a widget to be able to tear it down. CanJS and a lot of frameworks will have a remove event or a destroy event when an element is, it lets you know when this element is removed in the page so you can undo things. Actually, does jQuery++ have that? Like this is such a useful, I'm trying to do it without jQuery++, but I want to see if this is, it has the removed event. Okay, so this is a super, oh, it has the old code for it though, but it's the removed event. So with jQuery++, what we could do is what I could do is something like this. On my UL, I'm going to listen to when it's removed, and then I'm going to unbind from window hash change. This is what you can do with jQuery++. This is what I suggest doing if you're just building straight jQuery widgets. If you're using frameworks, they have their own way of doing this. This is a nice way if you're using just straight jQuery. Now, if you're not using jQuery++, then the only real solution is you provide a method. You need to store this event handler and provide a method to tabs. So what I mean is, instead of remove here, what people tend to do is there'll be a tabs method where you do tabs like tear down, and then you'll actually remove the breeds element. You could also make it so tear down will actually remove the breeds element. So we can kind of show how to set something like this up where if you call tabs tear down, that's actually going to tear down all the event handlers that might be leaking and actually remove the breeds from the page. So to do this, we somehow need to be able to get to this. Well, let me just do it. Here's the method. And what I'm going to do is if there is no method, then I'm going to do this standard stuff that we have in here, which I cannot indent for some reason. I need to file above.
There's a setting for it.
Setting for what?
Tabbing. After the call, I'll show you.
I'm just going to indent it like that. Okay. So if no method was passed, we're going to set up the normal tabs behavior. But if not, like we can check if other methods were passed or other options. So if I could do if method equals tear down. Now, what I want to be able to do is somehow do this. This is what I need to be able to do, is unbind this update method for each one of the tabs that's in the current collection. So even here, I need to be doing like a current collection. I need to be going through each, and I need to be somehow calling this, and then finally I'll just remove them. That's what I need to be able to do. But this update method isn't in the scope here, right? I can't access it because, you know, it's just in a different context. So I need some way of getting to it from each element. And the best way of doing that is using Jquery's data method. So Jquery has a data method that allows you to store arbitrary data on an element. So on my each UL, I can do data, and I'll call it like maybe update handler, and I can pass in update. And then here, I can retrieve that update handler. This is my UL. I'm going to convert it to jQuery. I'm going to get the data update handler. And then I'm going to remove it. Doing stuff, doing stuff, doing stuff, doing stuff, doing stuff. Okay, now it's gone. And then if I hit the back button, no more doing stuff. We could make this even sweeter. I do want to make it a little bit cooler. I do want to make it so it can tear down like the remove all the tab content, because I just think that'll be cool. Find each anchor, and then I'm going to get the tab content for each one. Oh, I need to do it each. Tab content for each one, and then I'm going to just remove that from the page. So, all right. So yeah, this Jquery data, again, it allows you to store arbitrary data on an element. So on each UL element, I'm putting the event handler that we need to tear down. And then later, if this was called a teardown, tabs was called a teardown, here we get that handler and we unbind it. And then here we're just going and removing all the tab contents before we remove the actual UL. Cool. Anything else?
Got real. That's pretty heavy duty.
Yeah, I like showing. I mean, this is how it's good to have teardown methods on widgets that are binding on things outside of the element that they manage themselves.
Mm-hmm.
People can make sure there's not going to be errors or memory. Cool. All right. So what's for next week, Alexis?
Next week's going to be really cool. This is all, I mean, if you liked the series coming into this, you can see we started really low level. We just built our first kind of custom plugin, but we saw how complex things can quickly be. So next week, we're going to catch up with maybe a little bit of step back, a high level view of web application theory. As you saw, building something we thought as simple as a tabs widget, when you start to take in real world considerations, and especially in a large application, it takes a little bit of processing to kind of put things together in a big maintainable fashion. We've all had applications with one JS file and like 10,000 lines of code. We all know how it feels to maintain those. So it turns out applying some really common principles, even on the JavaScript side, is really beneficial. So that's what we got coming up next week.
Awesome. I'm looking forward to it. Are you going to be here?
I will be here. I will be in England next week, but I will be here.
All right. Well, have a good week, Alexis, and everybody else who's watching. Please subscribe to us on YouTube, and hope to see you next week.